This is the Galaxy Z Fold 2. It's got all the headlining features, better design, bigger camera lump, and you'll probably get a bigger hump in your trousers too, because boy howdy, did it get bigger. The hinge and durability got an upgrade, and there's literally a mode designed to flex on people. All of this leads to an impressively designed smartphone that will result in more than just your ego going up. But despite everything the Fold 2 has going for it, it hasn't changed my mind on what the future of smartphones will have in store. I mean, if anything, it only reveals more problem with this form factor. Right now, there are three main problems that prevent devices like these from reaching the mainstream market: durability, price, and aspect ratios. Now, let's get into it. Jumping in first to durability, it's probably the biggest concern with the practicality of foldables right now. During my first couple days with this device, a small particle got into the hinge, an aspect that I came to understand very clearly. Every time I opened and closed the phone, I could feel the hinge move over the particle, making me realize and really be conscious of just how fragile a device like this can be. Thankfully, the issue resolved itself in a couple of days, and now the device opens like normal. But considering that I only had the device for a couple days and that's what happened, I dread to see what it's going to be like after a couple years, especially since I'm rocking the inner folding the screen without a protector, and it's already developed a few very minor micro scratches. And that's not even adding to the fact that this device is not water resistant, and for me, it's the biggest deal breaker because it means that I need to consciously worry when I'm around any sort of liquid. I once knocked over a drink on my iPhone, so I know that liquids can just come out of anywhere. A terrible, absolutely terrible thought to think about when using a device as, well, dubious as this. I'm just going to come out and say it. The Crease is worse than the notch. I don't mind feeling it, but I don't like noticing it. At least the notch or hole punch can be in the middle or either side of the display, whereas this Crease runs right down the center, meaning that if I'm not watching the screen straight on or a little bit of light reflects off the Crease on the wrong way, I get reminded that it is indeed there. Well, it only happens about 10% of the time, and it's not a deal breaker by itself, but it definitely does not help. The second reason is that the Z Fold 2 is also immensely expensive. Coming in at a cool $1,999, it is indeed a pricey phone. But admittedly, in the era of $1,399 phones, this price is becoming somewhat Just kidding. The average consumer only pays about $699 for a new phone, resulting in folding phones like the Z Fold 2 being an impractical purchase. And considering the fact that this phone right here cut the storage capacity in half compared to the Fold 1 and removed Galaxy Buds from the box, it doesn't even have the greatest camera or an S Pen. It just seems like foldable phones will not be getting cheaper anytime soon. Ultimately, the biggest reason why I don't think foldables will ever be in the mainstream market is that the concept itself is flawed. To start off with, phones like the Z Fold 2 have 2 screens, 3 sets of cameras, 2 batteries, and a huge hinge that runs through the middle of the screen, reflecting that it's just an ineffective use of the phone space. Think about it. Apart from showing the subject what they look like when you're taking a photo of them, you're only ever really going to use one screen at a time, and you're definitely only going to use one set of cameras at a time. This results in a lot of space in the phone being used ineffectively. Now, fortunately, fortunately. Phones like the Huawei Mate X exist that only have one screen and one set of cameras, which largely solves this inefficiency problem. But then users have to deal with an extremely fragile plastic screen on the outside, not the inside, and it doesn't even solve the aspect ratio problem. You see, phones like the Z Fold have two screens that wildly differ in aspect ratios. The front screen has an aspect ratio of 25:9, whereas the inside screen has an aspect ratio of 5:4. This results in an outer screen with much more of a narrow presence than a regular smartphone screen, and the inner screen is too much more square than a regular tablet screen. For instance, when watching videos that are either 16:9 or 2:1, the front screen on the Fold 2 has giant black bars on either side of the display, and the inner screen has huge black bars on the top and the bottom of the display. And to make things even worse, since the folding screen increases the width of the phone and not the height, the content doesn't even get much bigger than a regular phone. And the aspect ratio problems continue when dealing with other apps. Scroll-based apps like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube work much better on the outside display, as the tall aspect ratio can fit much more information at once, while Chrome works much better on something like the inner display, as it's easier to read large text on the bigger display. This leads to a disjointed experience, as one type of app works better on the outer screen, and some work better on the inner screen. Having to deal with this has really actually made me appreciate regular smartphone screens, as they usually have an aspect ratio of 19:9, and this seems to be the best aspect ratio for a majority of content, as you can still fit videos in while having enough space to scroll. Now, of course, apps have been specifically designed to work on these regular smartphone screens, so developers can, well, in theory, modify their apps so they work perfectly for foldables, and make them just as good, if not better, than regular smartphone apps. And while this might happen in the future, today is not that day. As it stands, many apps are very, very poorly designed for the Z Fold 2, and honestly, the fact that it has two screens with radically different aspect ratios, paired with the fact that hardly anyone is actually buying these devices, seems to result in developers having a harder time coding apps for a user base that is much smaller than any other. And as we saw with the Windows Phone, this is a recipe for death. No matter which way you look at it, a regular smartphone and its screen uses space much more effectively. The Z Fold 2 just seems like a device that you have to work with, rather than a device that works with you. So, is this the future? Over the past 3 weeks I've owned this phone, I've shown it to a small number of people. Some are quite interested in it, most honestly just have a quick look and then ignore it, and one even told me they hate it. Looking at the evidence, I think it's safe to say that folding phones like this Z Fold 2 are just too clunky, too inefficient, and too annoying to justify the high price and durability issues to the average consumer. Oh, yeah, and I completely forgot to mention earlier, the fact that you actually have to open up the device, I think is going to turn a lot of people off. It's a small nitpick, but it just means that you have to put more effort into using the phone. And I definitely think it's going to start annoying people because it slows them down. It slows them down. It honestly does. I know I've been using it a couple times where I just stayed on the front screen because I didn't want to put the effort in to open up. And at that point, I probably should have just used a regular phone. So, in the end, when you really think about it, to conquer all these problems, we're going to need to solve the durability, dramatically lower the tech so that it's about the same price as regular smartphones, and solve the aspect ratio problems, most likely by adopting an aspect ratio similar to a regular smartphone. Therefore, the Z Flip is the future of foldables for the mainstream audience. A phone with the same size screen as a regular smartphone. The same phone that you can already fit in your pocket perfectly fine. The same phone that is already very durable. And the same phone that can already almost do anything. It's at this point that I ask, what is the point? Now, I just think that foldables are new and shiny, and that's why everyone's calling them the future. Although people are starting to realize the downsides of this design. In my opinion, I do believe that foldables will carve out a niche in the smartphone industry, similar to the Note phone for power users. And I hate to humorously hit a hopelessly hard-hurt horse, but I really do think that by the time foldables improve enough to be ready for the mainstream in terms of durability and price, AR glasses are going to be here. And at that point, no one's going to want one-sized screen that you need to fold. They're going to want an infinite amount of screens at any size, anywhere, in an instant. And AR glasses won't have to worry about the durability concern that comes along with folding screens. It just feels, again, like folding screens are trying to make a faster horse when cars are just around the corner. In conclusion, I love the Z Fold 2. It's unique and it's got an eye-catching design that just makes me want to stare at it and use it every day. I actually really love having a tall screen for scrolling through apps and then having a really square display for watching videos when I need it. But considering that I bought a phone like this right now and I'm making a YouTube video about it, I don't think I'm an average consumer that just wants a phone that works. A phone with reliable durability and a phone that they don't have to think too hard about. Folding phones will exist in the future, but they will never be mainstream. But anyway, if you like or dislike or want to subscribe, you know where all the buttons are. Thank you for watching. I hope I made a good video. I don't know, I'm just recording it. But yeah, no, just check out other stuff if you want to have a look. I think there's stuff over there when the end title comes on. And of course, stay strong.